Welcome to Counsel and Community.
Hello and welcome to Counsel and Community, where legal insight meets real-life impact. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, here with the Nelson Law Group team to share practical guidance on navigating legal challenges while offering tips for personal growth and financial well-being. We are excited that you are here. Brett, Sarah, I am excited that you guys are here. I'm excited to chat with you.
Hi there.
Hi. Nice to see you again.
So we're talking about blended families, and we're talking about how to do it with care, what you want to know before you combine your households. So in your opinion, how soon is too soon to introduce someone new to your children?
Well, it's a great question. There is some variability in it, but a good general rule would be one, be divorced, or if it's not a divorce situation, make sure that relationship's over, that there's a court order in place governing what the relationship is with respect to parenting, support, all that stuff. Make sure that that your relationship is over with the other parent. And then before you introduce your children to a new love interest, you better have been dating that person seriously and exclusively for at least 6 months.
Yeah, I like the 6-month rule. I mean, obviously time's variable and every situation's different, but I like even longer than that. If we can do that, because you really don't. I kind of feel like you don't really know someone until you've been through every season with them. So I like longer.
I like that.
But 6 months is a good general starting guideline.
Do you feel is it best to start talking about the person and maybe their family, their kids, whatever, before, like over time, before they meet?
Well, if you do that and that person and you relationship ends, what do you do then? I think you're inviting confusion.
Do you think, though, you can talk a little bit, like warm up the idea of, at some point I might date, at some point I might want to have, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, depending on the age of the kids, and warm up the idea, but not specifically talk about that specific person?
I would get guidance from a professional on that with your particular circumstances in tow. And, obviously some transition period, something to warn the kids that you're going to be bringing someone else into the future at some point in time. Ideally, your kids would want to say, "Hey, Daddy, you should start dating again." That happens. If you're parenting properly and everything's healthy in the relationship, that's possible that's going to happen. But the more insight that you get into your particular situation, the better off you're going to be. But I think it's really important that parents solidify their children's perspective on the world again, so that they can get used to what's going on with mom and dad not living under the same roof, so they get some sense of normalcy before you add a variable. To change my answer a little bit, at least 6 months, but let's also make sure that our kids are in a good spot. Because if our kids aren't in a good spot and you are redirecting your attention to some other person, do you think that situation with your children is going to get better or worse? I think it's going to get worse, because you have less time. You're going to be distracted. Your focus is going to come off of what's truly important. And you have a very short period of time with your children when they're under your control. 18 comes very fast. And I tell my clients all the time, work so that your kids, when they're 18, choose to hang out with you, because they're not going to be required anymore. What are you doing now to solidify your relationship with your kids for the rest of their life? You got to focus on that.
That's awesome advice for anybody. That's any parent at any age. Yeah. So when you decide to start dating again, do you recommend telling your kids that you're going to start dating again? You know what I mean? Like, do you kind of just like do it and then tell them about it later? Or like, I don't know, like that's a tough spot.
Well, I'll let Sarah feed in on this, but my initial intake thought is this. I would be working with a professional who is more familiar with my circumstances, because every family is different. But I would say, I would ask open-ended questions. Hey, what do you think if Daddy went on a date? You know, you know, invite conversation, start conversation organically on the subject matter. Um, you know, I think it's a bad idea when you start telling your kids you're going to do something when it's in this realm without. I mean, more, kids like being part of a solution and part of the problem solving process. And if you can include them in your decision making, even though you're really not, if they feel included, you're going to end up with a lot better result.
Yeah, I think it's such an individual kids, how they're going to react. I think what he said, working with somebody that's familiar with this type of dynamic to give you guidance. But, depending, if you've got teenagers and they are going, hey, you should date, I mean, I started dating because my oldest daughter really encouraged me to get out of the house. So, and other circumstances with little kids that may be over their head, if there's other things going on there, the relationship with that, it's very subjective, and it's something to really tread lightly with and really think through how you do it, when you do it, that sort of thing.
I don't think there's a general rule, but critical that you move slowly and methodically through the process with great care and seek advice from professionals that are aware of and intimately aware, not just aware, kind of, but like know your family situation well enough to give you meaningful insight to what the next steps should look like. And then follow the advice.
There's that piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So going back, taking the kids out for a second, just talking about the couples themselves. What should the couple discuss in advance if they are entering a blended family or step parenting situation, or if the relationship is moving in that direction? What are the kind of things that you think that they need to talk about?
Well, if you are becoming involved with a person that has children, or you have children and are becoming involved with another party that has children, you need to have open communication about what does that look like? Who's going to take what role? And first, how are you going to make introductions? And then once you make introductions, what's going to be the roles with respect to discipline, rule making? Just how are you going to integrate it? I mean, it's more complex than putting together multi-billion-dollar companies. I mean, you got very, very important creatures that are going to be forever changed by the decisions and the actions you take. That's how important this is. You're impacting a child's remainder of their life. There's no do-overs. You can try to fix the damage you cause if you do it in an inappropriate or a harmful manner, but you don't get to redo it. And that's what I don't think parents understand, that these kids are here first. Your physical and emotional needs should come second. You've created them. They're the priority. Make them aware of that they're the priority, and act in accordance with that priority. There's no do-overs. I think parents sometimes downplay the significance of this next step, and it's a huge mistake.
It's not all as smooth as the Brady Bunch.
No. They had Alice, so she was the smoothing point. So
that was helpful. That was very helpful. Yeah.
Most families don't have an Alice.
From the other side, from the side of the two parents who got divorced, if one of them or both of them are going to enter into another relationship, another marriage where families start blending together, what about those conversations? Those can be some pretty difficult emotional conversations, I would imagine.
Well, if I got divorced, I'd be praying for my spouse to marry a godly person that loves my children as much as I do, and that they'll treat them as their own, and that we'd have a wonderful relationship. I have clients that would look at me like I have five eyes when I say that. And I go, oh, so you want your spouse to marry someone who's abusive to your children? Doesn't love them? And, they kind of like, oh, I didn't think of that. Another one is that always troubles me is when the parent comes in and says, well, his girlfriend, they're calling her mom. And I'm like, and? That's an earned title. If that person has spent that much time and made your children feel that loved, you should be happy about that, not upset. It's the perspective that, the parents being replaced, as opposed to being the role being augmented by another human being that is able to love on and take care of the child. And that's really what we need to be focusing. It's not an exclusion, it's an addition. And we should be grateful for that addition, not upset about it. And when all this is going on, if your children aren't freely sharing what's going on in the other party's house and talking excitedly about things that they're going to be doing in the future, then you've created an environment that's toxic to the children's growth in the other parent's house. And you really need to do some soul searching and seek some professional guidance on how you can fix that.
Yeah, jealousy is a powerful emotion. It's pretty much I always say it's kind of a wasted emotion. It's not a good emotion, but it's definitely very powerful. So in your example there of someone calling someone mom or dad or anything like that, yeah, I mean the initial reaction might be a bit of a gut punch, but you have to take a step back and go, all right, well, this is obviously a good thing for my child.
100%. And what's key is that you need to be thinking about these things before they happen, because you're going to have one shot at your kid coming home and calling the spouse of your ex mom, and for your reaction. And if you're not ready for that, you're going to lay down some negative energy, and that child's going to remember that. It's going to be imprinted on them, and they're going to think, oops, I can't love that person.
Yeah.
I just hurt my mom.
Or I don't tell my mom and I keep stuff, and that's not good
the next
either.
step.
Mm-hmm.
That's the next step. And then all of a sudden our child is riddled with anxiety because you don't, what's okay to say, what's not okay to say. I mean, it's a mess.
Sarah, blended families obviously bring a lot of emotional layers. What do you feel like couples need to be especially mindful of when entering a second marriage or a new co-parenting relationship?
I have a thing that I call the 4 stages of step parenting. So the first is when you meet the new person and you finally meet their children and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so in love with this kid. And and I love them just as much as I love my person, and it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be the Brady Bunch. And then the second is when you kind of start noticing that maybe there's some stuff that isn't like the way you would do it exactly. The third is when you start trying to force it to be different. You start trying to force your will. You start trying to discipline. You start trying to do that. And this is, in my experience, universal in blended families. This process has gone through. And in that third stage where you start trying to force things is where I think we see a lot of our custody modifications. We see people trying to change, taking people back to court and fighting, which is never the first solution. And it's also when we see divorces. And it's because they can't blend their families well. So, and then the fourth, if you can get there, is when you get to this place of surrender where you go, okay, I can't make it all the way I want it. This kid had other parents. They do things differently than me. And I'm going to just let go and be a safe space for this child and whatever that looks like. And if we can get to that surrender piece, then I think we've made it. But it is incredibly difficult to be in a blended family. It's incredibly difficult, especially for stepmoms in our culture. There's guys they stepped up and they took care of kids, but stepmoms, we're in every Disney movie, right? The Wicked Stepmother. Every movie it's that stereotype, and it infiltrates our families, and we're seen that way whether we are or not. And so it's a very difficult and tough process. And most women that I know, and I know a lot of them that have been stepmothers, would not do it again. And so it's something to really be mindful of and be aware. There's no reason you can't date somebody long-term and live in separate houses. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I'm just saying there are options, and to really think it through before you enter into this, because in a blended family, love is not enough.
Make sure that your own personal desires don't negatively impact kids. That's the rule. And the four stages that Sarah spoke of are exactly what we're kind of talking about. Let's talk about it before you do it. Let's plan this out. And if the person that you're interested in romantically isn't parenting in the manner in which you would parent, you need to ask yourself, is this something I can live with? Because is it a character flaw in your view, or is it just a choice, a stylistic difference, or is it a substantive difference? If it's a stylistic difference, then you just got to learn to accept it. But if it's substantive, how deep is that substance to your core, and is it going to be something that you can actually accept? And if you can't, then you really need to reconsider the decision to try to make that a serious relationship. Because I'll tell you this, that the parent is going to choose their child 90% of the time long term.
Yeah. So it's sort of like you just have to figure out where you fit in when it comes to discipline, affection, authority, all that stuff, and how it works. And to your point, Sarah, you're right. I feel like it's always, look at this guy stepping up and the stepmother's being overbearing or something like that. Even without the Disney tropes, like it really is like sort of my stepmother, like it's the stepdad's usually the cool kind of dorky guy in the movies, you know what I mean? And the stepmom's the one who's overbearing and can be very difficult.
Where I've found it to be the most effective is where the bonus mom or dad supports and supplements the biological or legal parents' discipline, parenting, whatever the situation. You're an assistant, if you will. You're not leading the charge. You're not calling the plays.
Right.
You simply facilitate, and making sure that you are always supportive and on the same page visibly to the children is an absolute must. If you want to disagree behind closed doors, that's fine, but do not undermine the legal parents' authority in front of their own children.
I say in that, treat your partner's children, your stepchildren, like you would your best friend's kids. You're not going to do some of the discipline you would do, but if there's a safety issue, you'll step in. Yep. You're going to make sure they're comfortable, they're fed, all of that when they're in your home, but you're not going to really be doing the parenting. And that tends to work best in most families.
Agreed.
That's a really good way to put it. I like that. Yeah, because I definitely have a different way with my friends' kids, obviously, than I do with my own kids. So that's a really good way to look at it, for sure. All right. Well, that wraps up today's episode. Sarah is going to take us to the end with her mindful moment. Sarah.
My blended family's mindful moment. I think what most people need, there's not a lot of good help out there for blended families. There's not a lot of great therapists. There's not a lot of great resources. One that was helpful to me as a woman was Step Monster, which is a book called Step Monster, but it's actually a fascinating book, and it's got some science in it and tips, and it was really helpful. The other thing that I think is the most helpful is community. Meeting other people that have blended families, meeting other stepdads, stepmothers, really immersing yourself in a community with people that get it and that you can go to and vent and take this to, because people that have not been through it don't understand it. And you will find so much support and help and love and understanding in a community of people that are doing what you're doing.
That's great. That's great advice. No doubt about it. All right. Well, remember, for more insights and exclusive resources tailored to navigate life's challenges, don't forget to check out the Nelson Law Group app. It's designed to support you through the divorce process with expert advice and community resources. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Leave us a review. We very much appreciate it. Brett, Sarah, always great having you here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments. For more exclusive content, including helpful guides like our Divorce Care Guide, download our app today and get the support you need right at your fingertips.